What's up, guys? It's Toad back again with Better Off Dead. This is for NFL. What is it? Week 16. A nice week last week with 3-1. Probably wish I went 4-1 because I did have a strong lean to the Buffalo Bills against Dallas, and they killed Dallas. So I was right about that. I wish I made that play, but 3-1, pretty good. Little bit of early Christmas there. Merry Christmas to all of you. It's Christmas week. We got games on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. These games are all over the place, man. And unfortunately, there are a lot of primetime games. And I know I talk about all the primetime games just because more people watch them. So, like, just to give like opinions on them if I'm not on them. I am on one of them this week. I have 3 plays in the NFL this week. Let's just jump right into it, man. Well, I don't know. Is there anything to comment on last week of the games that I did have? Washington was definitely a loser, by the way. Like, they were down multiple scores that whole game, but they almost backdoored it. And I thought Riverboat Ron might do it. I had them 6.5, and they cut it to 8 with like a garbage touchdown late. And I was like, come on, Riverboat, live up to your name and go for 2 for no reason. Like, he could have gone for, like, sometimes teams will go for 2 there just so if they get another touchdown, then they're playing for the win instead of the tie. I thought he might actually do it, but he didn't. And not only did he not do it, the extra point, they missed it or it was blocked or something. It's like, what the hell, man? What are you, Old Dominion? What's going on here? God damn, Washington. Ah, man, they are so bad. The rest of the games were good for me though. So I got all the covers there. Got Houston. I didn't even know who their quarterback was, who was going to start that game, and it wound up being Case Keenum. And I guess that was good for me because he actually played decent enough to get the win in place of C.J. Stroud. So that was good. And then what were the other games I had? I don't even remember. What else was I? What else was I even on? I kind of I like to rehash these games. It's like, what was I even on last week? Do I remember? Everything is such a blur, man. What else did I do? I was on the New Orleans Saints. That was a nice, easy win against the Giants. Giants in a huge letdown spot there. That was good. And then what was the other one I was on? I don't even remember. I think I don't know. I was on one of the other games on one of the Detroit Lions. I knew it was one of the other games. Yeah, yeah. One of the Saturday games. Another easy win there. So some nice easy wins there for me there. Let's jump into today's game, man. I talked about this game, the Thursday night game, Saints-Rams. I just talked about it in my daily breakdown. The line has not changed since I talked about it a little while ago. Rams sitting at a 4-point favorite. 73% of the cash, 74% of the tickets. So it does look like the Rams are the public team with a little bit of the cash discrepancy on the side of the Saints. I mentioned that the total might be the best way to look in this game, actually. One of these isolated Thursday games, even though it's up from 44.5 to 46, it looks like the over has some heavy action here with 73% of the tickets and of the cash. So I think the over is public. I would look to the under, man. I think people might be reacting to last week. I said the over might happen in the Thursday game, and it went over by like 50 points. That was absolutely wild, absolutely insane. People might be overreacting to that, like, hey, maybe these Thursday night games are not actually low scoring anymore. I don't think that's the case. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. I do lean to the under as probably the best way to play this game if you're going to play it, which I'm not going to. But I think it's what I said in my other video. This is like a playoff atmosphere type of game, and both of these teams are sitting like on the verge of the playoffs, fighting to try to get into the playoffs. So I think that's going to be more conducive to like a tougher game, a game where teams play it a little bit like tighter to the vest. They don't want to make mistakes. They're going to be running the ball. The Rams have been running the ball more than you would expect out of the Rams, even though they have really good wide receivers there and they have Matthew Stafford at quarterback. But they've been balancing their offense, and it's looked pretty good. They've been getting some good rushing numbers out of that team. So I think they might continue to do that, and the Saints, I think, are not very good against the run. So I think we will see the Rams doing that more, and it might shorten the game. So I do expect this to be that type of game, like a playoff atmosphere type of game where it's not as high scoring, and the defenses show up as well. The Rams, I think, are the way to, because it's a playoff atmosphere, I do lean slightly to the Rams for a side because they have the experience in big games on their side, and that's what you look for in these late season games like this. I would not trust Derek Carr. The Saints, if I was them, I would just go to Jameis Winston, to be honest, man, even though he has less experience in games like this than Carr. Carr, he has just been a letdown in like all of these types of games. Rams got Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay. They got a lot of guys that were on that Super Bowl team recently. They got guys that are experienced in games like this. They know how to win these games when it matters. So that's what I kind of look for in this one. And it's a short turnaround time and not like the best like geographic spot for the Saints to come into here with a shortened week. So I think that also kind of favors the home team when the road team isn't as familiar with going to their place that often, which is the case here. So I lean to the Rams slightly for those reasons. I think they have some slight edges because of that. And the Rams, as I mentioned in my other video, I think they have more need in this game. Although when a team has more need, they might be a little bit overvalued. But I don't think that's really the case here. I think the Rams are the slightly better team, like the line is indicating here. And the Rams need, if they're going to get into the playoffs, they have to get a wild card because they're way too far behind San Francisco. So the only way into the playoffs for them is the wild card. So they need to win these games. The Saints can win their horrible NFC South division there, and they're on top of it right now, tied with Tampa Bay, even though it's a three-way race there still with Atlanta there. The Saints, they can win their division or get a wild card. So I think the pressure is a little bit more on the Rams here, which could be a negative, but I think it also means that they have more motivation here as well. So that's the way I tend to look at that one. I tend to lean to the Rams. We'll go to Saturday. I have a play in the night game on these two games. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm on in the night game of these. This is my favorite play of the week, which is just ridiculous. Bengals-Steelers, I think, is actually a tough game to handicap. Bengals are up from a pick 'em to a 2-point favorite on the road on Saturday. 60% of the cash on them, but 82% of the tickets. So it looks like even though they've moved up, that might be because of, like, some of the like injury stuff that's going on with both teams' quarterbacks and whatever. They are the public team right now. They're the road public team, and the cash discrepancy is on the Steelers. And if the Steelers are going to do something, they're going to have to turn it around, man, because they've hit a bad stretch. It's catching up with them. I had said I thought they were overperforming to start the season, and it looks like that is the case, even though Mike Tomlin's a really good coach. It's like, what can you do at this point? They lost Kenny Pickett, although I don't think he was doing that well, man. I don't think it's that much of a drop-off to Mitch Trubisky. And then I forget who else. I don't even know who's quarterbacking for the Steelers in this game. Mason Rudolph might be starting this game because I think they put him in at the end of the last game because the Steelers last week, they looked awful, dude. They were out 13-0 against the Colts, and then they didn't score again, and they lost 30-13 or something like that on one of those isolated those are the Saturday games, I believe. So they're playing Saturday 2 weeks in a row. I kind of liked the Steelers in that one, and they looked good at the beginning, but just really totally fell off. And it was to the point where they took Trubisky out and put Mason Rudolph in, and now Rudolph I think he gets the start this week. Rudolph is playing on Christmas week. You get Rudolph, and he's leading the team. I don't know if he has a red nose or anything, but that seems a little bit too on the nose almost. If the Steelers were to, if he's going to guide them to victory. Rudolph, won't you guide the Steelers tonight? I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. I still don't even know which way I lean in this one, but the Steelers looked awful last week, and they have extra time off, I guess, because they played on Saturday, and the Bengals, they both played on Saturday. The Bengals, did they? Yeah, they both, I don't even know, man. I think they both played on Saturday, right? Because the Bengals played against Minnesota. I think that was the first game. And then the Steelers played in the next game. Then the Lions game was the night game. Yeah, so they both played on Saturday last week, and they're both playing on Saturday again. The Bengals were losing their entire game against Minnesota, and then they wound up winning in the end. Minnesota just really blew that game. It was a decent performance for Minnesota, and I think Justin Jefferson was back. I think Nick Mullins is just a little bit too mistake prone. I don't think he's that bad, but making too many mistakes, and it wound up costing Minnesota a little bit in the end. Minnesota should have won that game, and they were winning by multiple scores pretty late in that game. So you could argue that means the Bengals got a little bit of a scare. Maybe that'll focus the Bengals a little bit. But the Steelers got absolutely blown out. So I think both teams have reason to be focused in this game. It could be a bounce back for the Steelers, which is why I said this is a really tough handicap. The Bengals, however, are in a spot where it's one of those in-season division road revenge angles because the Bengals, in Jake Browning's first game, his debut, that was at Cincinnati, the Steelers beat them, and the Bengals did not play well in that game. I think the Bengals got really outplayed in that game, more so than what the final score even indicated. The Steelers won 16-10, but I think the Steelers were I think they out-yarded the Bengals by like 100-something yards. The Steelers, like, statistically really dominated that game. So the Steelers went into the Bengals' house, won that game. So now the Bengals are in that kind of road reversal revenge, which is a pretty decent angle in the NFL, though it is a better angle when that road team is an underdog, which the Bengals are not. They're a favorite. So there are some angles that have me leaning to the Bengals there, but other angles that don't, and the market looks like it's against the Bengals. So I don't even know. I have to pick all these games in my pools. I don't even know which way I'm going to go in this game, to be honest, because I think both teams have reason to show up here. So those are kind of my feelings on that one. Like, is Jake Browning as good as he looks? So far, probably not. I think he's probably not bad. So I think part of the reason the Bengals are going to be so public here is because people like what they've been seeing out of him recently. They've been winning with him outside of that first game. But again, that one game that he lost was against the Steelers. So that might motivate them. They want that quick revenge against the Steelers. So that's kind of the way I look at that. My initial way to look at this was to weigh that in as like the extra like motivational factor and lean to the Bengals slightly, but the market is definitely in opposition to that, I would say, like the market indicators. So this one's really tough. So I don't know. So I'm certainly not going to be on that one. One of the games I am on, however, let's just talk about it now. The LA Chargers plus 12. Oh, man. Help me, please. The Bills are up from 9.5 to 12, which 9.5 might have been like the look ahead, or maybe it just shot up this much. I don't even know. The Bills have 84% of the tickets and 85% of the cash. I think the cash discrepancy might wind up not being on the Bills' side here. The Bills are absolutely going to be the public team here, and I just think this is a bad spot for the Bills, even though they're in a situation where they can't afford to really lose because they need to get into the playoffs after they had such a bad start to the season. But they had a bad start for a reason, man. Maybe it's because the Bills don't totally have it together, and now you could at least argue that the pressure is going to be on the Bills in all of these games, at least, which isn't necessarily a good thing, even though I just mentioned that might be the case with the Rams, maybe, even though I do kind of like the Rams in the Thursday game, tonight's game. But the Bills, it could be pressure is on them, and this line is just way too high, man. A 12-point line in the NFL, like, really? I mean, the Chargers, yeah, they don't have Justin Herbert. Like, what would this line be if they had Justin Herbert? Like, it would be like, would it be like around a pick 'em? Like, the Bills would be like a small favorite, I guess, probably. They're like a bit of the better team, but really? Like, the Chargers still have Austin Eckler. I think Keenan Allen's playing in this game. They still have a lot of stars on their offense. Easton Stick didn't even do that bad last week. I don't think he is really that bad. Easton Stick, the Chargers quarterback out of North Dakota State. I didn't even know what his name was last week. But the Chargers, I mean, this is lining them like they're one of the worst teams in football. And even though they're without Justin Herbert, I don't think that they're, really that bad. Even though, yeah, the Chargers, like, they don't have the playoffs to play for. But that does also mean that the pressure is off, and they might play like a looser style game. There is a lot going into this game, man. I got to talk about all these factors. Hopefully I don't forget anything. Let's look at the Bills side of this first. So even though, well, like I said, the Chargers, yeah, even though they're not going to make the playoffs, I think that could kind of lean towards them being, that could be conducive to more of a game where the Chargers are going to show up and play like a looser style of football just because they have nothing to lose, and they have the Bills coming to their house. So I think the Chargers might play well for that reason. On the Bills side, the Bills are, of course, in a gigantic letdown. So I mean, they crushed the Cowboys last week, which was a game that I thought the Bills were going to show up because the Bills needed that game. And the Cowboys, it was an out-of-conference road game in cold weather for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are coming off a huge win over the Eagles, revenge win, huge win that tied them in the division with the Eagles, I think. So that was a major letdown for the Cowboys. And the Bills totally destroyed the Cowboys. And now coming off that, now the Bills have to go out to the West Coast for a night game to face the Chargers. And I always say people think that the West Coast team going east is bad. The worst situation, I think, in the NFL as far as west to east coast is concerned is the East Coast team going west for a late night game, because it's like you're playing at like 11 o'clock at night with your biological clock, or like midnight. You're playing a really late night game, and it just really messes with your biological clock. I think that's the worst spot for an East Coast team to be in, and that's what Buffalo has to do here. They have to go out and play a night game at the Chargers, and we've seen it before where these East Coast teams struggle in like these late night games on the West Coast like that, specifically at the Chargers, even though the Chargers aren't as good as they sometimes are at this point. And I would argue this might also even be a sandwich. Like the Bills might overlook the Chargers, or they might not overlook them, but think that it's just going to be an easy win. They're coming off 3 huge games where they played the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys all in a row. 3 huge games, and now they go to the Chargers, have to go out to the West Coast, and the Chargers are not looking good and don't have Justin Herbert anymore. It's possible Buffalo, they just can't totally get themselves up for a game like that. Got a little bit of NFL ED there maybe. But I would argue this might even be a sandwich spot. And you might say, well, wait a minute, why? They're playing the Patriots next. The Patriots suck. Yeah, the Patriots do really suck. But what did the Bills do the first time they played the Patriots this year at New England? The Bills lost to the Patriots in New England. That was one of the Patriots' only wins on the season, where the Patriots were leading that entire game, and the Bills made a late comeback. And, of course, it was like, well, this is the 2023 Patriots. They just blew the game. That's it. They blew the big lead. The Bills are who we thought they were, that type of thing. The Bills are going to win. But the Patriots actually got like a final drive together and actually wound up retaking the lead and winning against the Bills at the end. So the Bills might have that in their mind, man, even though it is the Patriots. The Patriots beat the Bills this year, and that might make the Bills mad because that's part of the reason why the Bills are fighting to get into the playoffs still. They didn't beat the New England Patriots. So the Bills might have that game kind of circled almost because the Patriots beat them. So all of this makes it a bad spot for Buffalo. It's absolutely a letdown spot. It's a weird travel spot, having to go out to the West Coast. Weird timing for a late night game with one fewer day on the week as well. And oh my God, it's just yeah. And then, well, I'm going to talk about the Chargers in a second, and then they have the Patriots up next, which that is a revenge game for the Bills, as bad as the Patriots are. On the Chargers side of things, like I was saying, the Chargers, they have reason to show up in this game, man. Even though they're not going to make the playoffs, they just gave up 63 points to the Raiders. You're still playing for pride, man. You give up 63 points. I think they were losing that game 42-0 at one point in that game. You do that badly against the Las Vegas Raiders. You do that badly against anybody, you're going to show up in your next game. And it's the Buffalo Bills coming to your house, one of the best teams in the conference, coming into your house, even though their record is not quite indicative of that. The Chargers are going to have to be focused here. You don't give up 63 points to somebody in the NFL and not want to redeem yourselves and play better than that. So I think the Chargers are going to be motivated for that reason because they look so ugly. They have extra time off because that was a Thursday night game, so they have extra time to prepare for this game against the Bills. I think that's going to be helpful, especially against when the Bills are coming off a huge win like that and look totally dominant, while the Chargers played like one of the worst games maybe in like their team history, really. Terrible game for the Chargers. And it wasn't even as close as the final score indicates, really. Terrible game for the Chargers. So I think all of that is going to have the Chargers focus. And if that's not enough, what else did the Chargers do? They fired their coach, Brandon Staley, finally. I like that fired coach angle, man. I've missed a couple of them in the NFL this year. It worked for Carolina when they fired Frank Reich. It fired them up, and they covered against, I believe, Tampa. They covered it, and it worked for the Raiders, and the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. The Raiders reeled off a couple of wins in a row and played really well. I think the first game without him, they absolutely destroyed the Giants, maybe. It was that game. This fired coach angle is good, man. When the team doesn't like the coach, and I don't think there's any way they like Brandon Staley. He has more than outstayed his welcome in LA. He's been an awful coach. I think he should have been gone 2 years ago. It's shocking that he was still the coach up to this point. And what does it take to finally get rid of him? You give up 63 points to the Raiders. Yeah, okay. Well, Brandon Staley is gone now. I think that's going to fire up the team as well. I think if you like that new coach that's coming in, you're going to want to play well for him. But there's also the fact that once your coach gets fired, the players don't want to make it look like they're the reason why the team has been losing. And they want to make sure that they let you know that it wasn't us, man. It was the coach. A lot of it had to do with the coach. We're not that bad. The coach was like dragging us down. So I think there's that aspect of it. The players want to look good. They want to make it look like it was not them who were like the main reason why the team was doing so poorly. And If they like the coach, they're going to play well for the coach. So all of those reasons, the Chargers, I think, are going to be motivated in this game. And it's just this is the best play of the week, I think. As ugly as it looks, it's just such a bad spot for Buffalo. And the line is just insane against a motivated team, a team that's probably going to be motivated at home, even though they're without their quarterback. The LA Chargers getting 12 points at home. This number is just ridiculous. Almost no team should be laying 12 against any other. Like, maybe 12 is warranted if it's like the 49ers at Carolina, then maybe a line like this is warranted. With the Chargers being like an okay team at home, I don't think this line is warranted. I like it. I'm on the Chargers plus 12. That's play number one. Moving to, what do we got here? Yeah, let's move to the Sunday slate here. I'm just going to go in order of these games. I do kind of lean to the Atlanta Falcons, even though I'm not on it right now. Colts at Falcons. Falcons it looks like they've gone down from 1.5 to 1. They got 59% of the cash on them, but 50% of the tickets look like it's split 50-50, really. But the cash discrepancy looks like it's on the Falcons. Nobody's going to want anything to do with the Falcons, man, because what did they just see out of the Falcons? They just lost to Carolina and only scored 7 points against Carolina, even though they were good. They were still probably going to win that game, and then Carolina kicked a field goal to win it right at the end. You lose to Carolina, man, and you're still battling to try to win your division. That's embarrassing, and you're motivated to win this game. In the case of the Falcons, they just fell a game behind the Saints and Tampa, who both just won this week. The Falcons are going to be motivated to turn around, man. You don't lose your top spot in your division there and do it by losing to Carolina, and you want to let that stand? I don't think so. I think the Falcons are definitely going to be motivated here. The Colts looked better than they are, probably. They just, as I mentioned, they destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was a big win for the Colts, I guess. I mean, the Colts look way too good, at least, beating the Steelers 30-13 or whatever. So nobody's going to want anything to do with the Falcons. After what they saw from both of these teams recently, people are going to think, well, the Colts are the way better team. This line is indicating the Colts are actually the better team here. But I think the spot is just better for the Falcons here, even though the Colts do have extra rest, and the Colts are also playing to make the playoffs here. They're fighting for the division at this point, and they're fighting for a wild card. So, but it's also kind of it might be a situation like what I mentioned with the Rams and the Saints. The Falcons, arguably, they could still make a wild card, but I don't know, man. I think the Falcons at this point, they're trying to win this division. The Colts, even though, yeah, they're trying to win their division, they have more of a chance at a wild card as well, I think. So maybe that adds more motivation to the Falcons side as well. So my lean would be the Falcons there, but there are definitely reasons for both teams to show up in this game. This is an interesting game. It's a battle with a lot of playoff implications. Or both these teams are fighting to make the playoffs. That's the way I look at that. Browns Texans is interesting, and I've been close to playing the Falcons this week and close to playing the Cleveland Browns this week. Browns look like it's flipped from a 1-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite. It looks like it's going through the 2.5, which is crazy. 52% of the cash on the Browns and 57% of the tickets are on the Houston Texans. And I kind of like the Browns in this spot, man. But the Browns, yeah, the line is kind of getting a little bit out of control. I don't know if I wouldn't want to lay like 3 or more on the road with the Cleveland Browns because the Browns are more of a defensive team than an offensive team. But even so, like this number looks like it's indicating that C.J. Stroud is probably still out for the Texans. So he missed last week's game, and I took the Texans in the injured player theory spot there. C.J. Stroud in concussion protocol. He hasn't practiced this week yet, so I think he's doubtful this week. I think it's going to be Case Keenum again. And Case Keenum was good in that injured player theory situation there. The team kind of rallied for him. They played decently enough to beat the Tennessee Titans. I believe it went into overtime, and they were able to win kind of a crazy game near the end. Will Levis had that bad leg injury at the end. Crazy stuff going on in that game. The Texans wound up getting out of there with a win, thankfully for me. They covered as an underdog and won outright. Nice win for the Houston Texans there, but now they're facing a spot where it's either the second game with Stroud out, so it's the second game with Case Keenum in there after they won that first game, so that becomes like sort of the reverse injured player theory type of situation, where now the team, you just won that big game with that first game, you put in that huge effort to compensate for your quarterback being out. Then the next game, the team tends to take a little bit of a step back. So that might be what happens here for Houston, even though they are fighting for their division. So they do have reason to show up here, just like the Colts. So that is what keeps me off of it a little bit. Houston does have that motivation there. And then if CJ Stroud does come back, this is why I wouldn't take this right now because, I don't know. Because if you like the Browns and if CJ Stroud isn't going to play, I guess you do want to get in on this now and just lay the 2 or 2.5 with the Browns before it gets totally out of your grasp, because I just don't think Stroud is going to play. But of course, if Stroud does, you'll see this line come back down towards like a pick'em price. But I don't think he will. So I guess maybe if you like the Browns, you do need to get on it. Before you lose so much value that it gets to the 3 or whatever. But if Stroud were to come back, I think it would also be a reverse injured player theory spot. But in that case, it would affect the line too much, and then you'd get a better price on the Browns in that case. And the team that just won without that injured player, they tend to also kind of like be a little bit flat in that next game with that injured player coming back. They tend to think, well, we just won without him, and they have that kind of in their mind. Like they almost think they can like take it easy a little bit, but I don't think the Texans can totally take it easy because they're fighting for the division, fighting for a wild card, fighting to get into the playoffs here. So that is the case with them. The Browns also are trying to make the playoffs, man. They need to get a wild card as well because I think they know they're not going to. I don't think they can catch the Ravens at this point. I think the Ravens are 2 games ahead of them. So the Browns are fighting for a wild card, and they have one of the wild card spots right now, I believe, because they're sitting at 9-5, maybe something like that. And the Browns didn't look good last week. So Houston's off that big win in the injured player theory spot. Browns were losing all game to the Chicago Bears, I believe at home too. And then the Browns were able to pull that game out of their ass somehow and win the game. They went on that rally late. Joe Flacco somehow leading the Browns to a win. I don't even get it. He's got to be like 40-something years old, and he's still out there winning football games. I don't know what the deal is with that Flacco. Maybe he's not the worst quarterback to be in there for the Browns, I guess. And the Browns pulled that game out and won, and then it ended on that crazy Hail Mary attempt from Chicago where they should have actually caught it for a touchdown. It got deflected in the end zone, and I think Mooney is the receiver's name, who was on the ground in the end zone. The ball basically fell right into his hands while he was sitting on the ground in the end zone, and if he just catches that, it's a touchdown, and the Bears still wind up winning the game after blowing it. He didn't catch it, and he dropped it, and the Browns won the game. Just absolutely insane. It's like the Browns have some weird, like, magic voodoo right now, and they just keep winning without Deshaun Watson in there. They've been without Watson for like half the season, really. Similar to last year. This time it wasn't because of getting hand jobs from masseuses. This time it's because he's actually injured. Oh my God. But the other thing about this game is that the Browns have one of the top defenses in the NFL, and it's a defense unlike what the Texans have really seen so far. I think the best defense the Texans have seen this year really is the Jets, and the Jets manhandled the Texans. And the Texans had Stroud. That was the game Stroud got hurt, but Stroud was in there for most of the game, and he had an awful performance against the Jets defense. The Browns defense is going to be one of the other best defenses, and maybe the best defense they've faced this year. So I think the Browns, with their defense, have the ability to really keep that Texans offense down as well. So I lean to the Browns. The next game I'm going to be on is going to be the Tennessee Titans plus 2.5. And this one is difficult to take. There's kind of a lot going into this game too, but I think the situation is kind of, I'll just keep it up while I talk about it. That is what I usually do, right? The situation, I think, is just too much to not be on this one. There are too many situational factors that I like about the Titans here. So Seattle Seahawks are up from 2 to 2.5 on the road. It looks like it's going through the 2.5. So I might wait on this and see if you can get a 3, because if you don't get the 3, you'll still be able to get a 2 or 2.5 probably. So if it hits that key number 3, that will be good to take the Texans at that price, I would say. So you could wait around on this one and maybe try to get the 3. Seahawks have 59% of the cash, but 53% of the tickets. So it looks like they do have the cash discrepancy, and the market is moving in their direction. But I think the cash discrepancy we might see start going the other way as the line kind of creeps up. And part of the reason why the line is moving up on the Seahawks is because Geno Smith is coming back. So I believe he's practiced already this week. He's going to come back after he's missed 2 weeks. And it looked like I think it was kind of surprising that he missed any time. He got injured before the San Francisco game, which unfortunately I was on the Seahawks in that one. And they covered the larger numbers after Geno Smith was ruled out and didn't cover the number that I was on. So great. Thanks a lot for that one. Geno Smith was ruled out like the night before the game or whatever. And Drew Lock came in. And he's been a pretty serviceable quarterback for the Seahawks. They played decently in that game against San Francisco. And then they had a huge game on Monday night. They had a home game, and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles in dramatic fashion. They beat the Eagles at the end of that game. That's a huge win for the Seattle Seahawks. And, yeah, it is true the Seahawks can't really afford to take their foot off the gas here because they are trying to make a wild card spot here, trying to get into the playoffs, and they're teetering on being eliminated. But I don't know if that's going to just mean that the pressure is mounting too much, but the Seahawks are in a letdown spot, man. And you might say that, well, there is no such thing as a letdown spot when the team has to win these games to stay in the playoff hunt. I mean, yeah, being in the playoff hunt is a motivational factor. It's going to keep them motivated, but you still have spots where if you're coming off a max effort game like that, it's still going to be tough. Even if you want to maintain that effort, sometimes you just can't, and sometimes you just run out of gas there. So that might be the case here. The Seahawks played on Monday night, so they have a shorter week. They have one fewer day off than the Titans have, so a lot of this is a type of spot that I tend to look at and go the other way here. Seahawks, huge letdown spot here, and kind of a tough place to play, having to go to Tennessee. And they have the shortened week there because that was a Monday night game. It was a Monday night primetime game, which means it was bigger effort. On your home field, you get really up for that game. And even though the Seahawks have played well on the road, Pete Carroll is a good road coach. There's just something about this, man. It's just, I think it's a bad spot for the Seahawks. I don't know. Who do the Seahawks have up next? I should be looking at this. I don't know who they have up next, but what do they got going on here? They play the Steelers, so not really a big game there either. But finishing out the year, they got the Steelers and at the Cardinals, and those are kind of winnable games as well. It's also possible they kind of take the Titans lightly here, man. After these, they've actually had 4 huge opponents in a row, maybe even 5 if you throw the Rams in there. Look at the schedule. They did get blasted by the 49ers, and they played a lot better. And this is a primetime game at the Cowboys Thursday night. Big game, and they blew it right at the end. Then they played a tough game against the 49ers as well, and then Drew Lock led them to the win against the Eagles. Now they're in a letdown. Not only are they in a letdown and a shortened week, but it's also going to be a reverse injured player theory spot now where Geno Smith is coming back. Now you have to work him back in. Who knows what he's going to be like if he's going to come in. He's going to be a little bit rusty right away. The team's got to get used to him being back in there. The team might say, well, we just beat the Eagles without him, and might think we can win this game pretty easily against the Titans. The Titans are out of it. Titans have nothing to play for, right? I'm not sure that's totally true because I think the Titans, I don't think they're a totally defeated team here, even though that was a tough loss against the Texans. I was on the Texans there. It was a bad spot for the Titans. It was the Texans in an injured player theory spot. Yeah, with Stroud out, but also the Titans were in a shortened week coming off a huge Monday night double-digit upset win at Miami. It was just a letdown spot for the Titans, man. Now they got the Seahawks coming into their house. I think they're still going to want to play for something here. And the other thing that I think is a reason why they're going to want to play well is after Will Levis got hurt, I don't know who they put in a quarterback. I don't know if it was Tannehill or who's their other quarterback? I don't even know. Malik Wills or whatever. Wills has played this year. Wills has not done well. Whatever the case, the Titans are rolling with Ryan Tannehill here. Even though he didn't do that well when he was in earlier this year, Tannehill is at least a guy with a lot of NFL experience. He's played in a lot of games. He knows what he's doing. He's been on this Titans team for a while. I think he wants something to prove, man, because in that quarterback battle, they've basically decided that we're not going to go with you anymore. We're going to go with the new guy, Levis. I think Tannehill actually has something to prove here, proving you weren't justified in totally replacing me here. I think he's going to want to play a good game here. I think that's the situation. I think the Titans might want to play a decent game here at home after a loss like that. I don't know if that is a dream crush, even though it's a dream crusher and that you're I think you're eliminated now, maybe mathematically or whatever, but you got the Seahawks coming into your house. I think you might still show up for this game, and you might want to play well for Ryan Tannehill. If the guys on Tennessee like Tannehill, I mean, he's a guy that's played with them for a while. He's been around. I think the Titans might be able to do this here. They're getting points at home. I think it's a much better spot. So Tennessee's kind of in the injured player theory now, where Will Levis is now out, but that means they're going to a quarterback who really I don't think is that much worse than Levis, even though I do shit on Tannehill quite a bit, and I don't think he's that good, but I don't think it's that much of a difference for Tennessee between those two quarterbacks, to be honest. And the Seahawks have their injured quarterback coming back, so it's kind of this weird, like, inverse reverse injured player theory situation going on here, where the Seahawks are in the reverse injured player theory and Tennessee is in the injured player theory, basically. So that's how I look at this, and the Seahawks are in a letdown and whatever. So I'm on the Tennessee Titans, getting some points at home. If it hits 3, I will be taking the 3. We'll see what happens with that, but I like the Titans there. I think that's the weakest vote out of the weakest play out of these 3 that I have, though, that are on the board. And I will mention that the Jets Commanders, I don't care about the game really, but the Jets, it looked like they were bouncing around, maybe starting Aaron Rodgers in this game, and it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, Rodgers is practicing now. He's back at practice, but I believe they've decided they're just going to run with Zach Wilson for the rest of the, I think I called him Cody Wilson at one point. What is Cody Wilson, the 3D printed gun guy? No, Zach Wilson. The guy who likes banging other people's moms or whatever. He's back in there. It seems like the Jets like having him back in there, so he is going to finish out the season. I think if they were still in the playoff hunt, they'd be switching to Rodgers at this point because he has been cleared to play. I believe he's practicing. And it was weird because it was like they almost seemed to be saying like that we're going to let Rodgers decide if he's going to play or not. It's like so bizarre. And maybe it's like, is Rodgers the coach here? I don't know. Rodgers has a lot of power there in that locker room, but I think he's probably deciding, yeah, I'm just not going to do it. Like, we're out of the playoffs, man. We'll get ready for next year. I'll like get to work, like learning the system more and learning to play with these guys and whatever in these practices and whatever. So just kind of weird that there was a chance that Aaron Rodgers might actually come back when the Jets have nothing to play for. The other game I'm on, let's talk about it now. I'm on it here. It is Cowboys-Dolphins. I'm on Dallas +2, baby. I like this one quite a bit. I leaned to Dallas when I first saw this come out, and I wasn't that strong on it. And as I've like read what's going on here and thought about it more and looked at the situation throughout the week, I like Dallas more in this one so much that it's going to be a play. Dolphins, look at, they've actually flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1-point favorite. Obviously, it doesn't really matter if it's a favorite or a dog. They're actually a 1.5-point favorite at most places. I found a 2 on the Cowboys, so I just grabbed it. Dolphins have 57% of the cash, but 52% of the tickets. So the public is going to be reacting again to what we just saw last. And they like this Dolphins offense, man. With Tua, Tyreek Hill is coming back, and I think he missed the last game or whatever, and they still blew out the Jets. It didn't even matter, even though the Jets have a good defense. The Dolphins beat them 30-0. Just ridiculous. Dolphins are at home here. The public is pretty much only going to want to be on the Dolphins at this point. They have the flashiest offense, even though the Cowboys' offense has looked pretty good as well. The public loves that Miami offense, man, that high-flying offense. They like Tyreek Hill coming back. He is one of the fastest players in the NFL, and he's apparently really fast at impregnating women as well, because apparently it came out that he has had 3 different children this year with 3 different women, even though Hard Knocks like completely just leaves that out of the equation. Hard Knocks in season with the Miami Dolphins this year, they don't even mention that. They're just like, Tyreek Hill, oh, look at this. He just got married to his longtime girlfriend. Look how beautiful this is. Not even mentioning, oh, yeah, he's just banging all these other women and knocking them up. Yeah, okay. But of course he is. He's an NFL player, man. He's got 15 kids or whatever. You know that's going to be the case. Tyreek Hill, fastest man on earth, fastest sperm on earth. Let's go. He's coming back in this game. Miami, and then you got, of course, we know what the Cowboys did last weekend. I said it was a really bad spot for the Cowboys. They had just beaten the Eagles. They were in a huge letdown mode in that one, having to go on the road, out of conference, to face a really desperate Buffalo Bills team who's trying to make the playoffs and is better than we probably think that they are. up in the cold outside in Buffalo. Buffalo just absolutely housed the Cowboys. It was a horrific game for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are going to be in a total bounce back mode here, and this is going to be a much better spot for them. They get to play in the warm weather in Miami. It's much, much better for the Cowboys in this one. It's going to be more conducive to what they want to do on offense. They're in a total bounce back situation here, whereas the Dolphins are kind of chugging along and looking like they can't really do no wrong. Their offense looks really good. I think that this is a bounce back spot for Dallas, and Dallas still has the division in sights for them, man, because the Eagles also lost with them, and I think that's going to give them a little bit of extra motivation here because they know that now. They didn't know that yet when they were playing last week and getting manhandled. Then they watched the Monday night game probably and saw the Eagles lost. And I'm pretty sure they're still tied with the Eagles right now in the division. I don't know who has the tie. I think the Cowboys might even have the tiebreaker. I'm not even sure, but they can still win that division, man. And I think they would want nothing less than to do that. The Dolphins, on the other hand, they have some padding in their division, man. Like, they're in the playoffs already. I think they have less reason to show up in this game, really, even though it is the Dallas Cowboys coming to your house. Dallas is fighting to win their division. Dolphins have, I think, a 2-game padding in the AFC East right now. There's no way they're not going to make the playoffs at the very least, even though, sure, they want to win the division. But they have a multiple-game padding, even though they know Buffalo won last week. The Dolphins still won last week as well to hold serve there, so it's unlikely that the Dolphins don't win the division at this point, even though I think they're going to lose this game. And Buffalo is probably going to win their game because they're a huge favorite. But I think the motivation is more on the Cowboys side here, and I think we're getting a little bit of value there because of what we just saw out of both of these teams, especially out of the Cowboys playing so poorly. This line is telling you the Cowboys are the slightly better team over the Dolphins here. I agree with that. I do think the Cowboys are a slightly better team. And what have we seen out of the Dolphins, man? Whenever the Dolphins have had a step-up game this year, they haven't won. They've played one of the easier schedules this year, and they've really only had 2 step-up games this year, and they were against the Eagles and the Chiefs. And the Dolphins lost both of those games. The Dolphins have not had like a signature win this year. And maybe you might say that, well, that might motivate them because they want like that signature win. And this is like their last shot to get that. I don't know if they really care about that much. They care about, let's win the division, let's make the playoffs, and then we'll show what we got against these better teams, man. But the Dolphins, I think they're not as good as we think they are. Their defense has a lot of injuries on it. Even though the defense has been playing better recently, it's been against some pretty bad offenses. I don't think the defense is really that good. This is going to be one of the best offenses they run into on the season in the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to be able to score against them without that much difficulty, to be honest. And I think it's probably going to be a high-scoring game, but I don't know. The total isn't really that high, and it looks like it's going down, so I could be wrong about that. The total seems to be more indicating this is kind of like a playoff type of atmosphere, and maybe it will be, but I still don't see the Dolphins' defense totally being able to stop the Dallas Cowboys here. The Dolphins haven't done that well against those better teams this year, the Chiefs and the Eagles, and neither of those teams can score as much as the Cowboys can. The Cowboys, their issues are more on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side. So I do expect the Dolphins are probably going to be putting up points in this game as well. But I think it's a better spot for the Cowboys here. I like the Cowboys getting points. And the Cowboys, at least they have done better against big competition than the Dolphins have. Oh, and the Dolphins did have a step-up game against the Bills, and they lost that game too. So their 3 biggest opponents, they lost all of them to the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. They lost all of them. Cowboys kind of are similar to the Dolphins in that they have been beating up on a lot of bad teams, but the Cowboys at least have beaten the Eagles. The Cowboys... of course, we saw they lost to the Bills, but I think that was just about the spot was just awful for the Cowboys. And the Cowboys at least beat the Eagles once. So I do think it's a better spot for the Cowboys, who are actually the better team here. I like it. Even though I don't like the Cowboys coach, McCarthy, I think he's just he has issues in bigger games, but I don't think this is going to be one of them. I like the Dallas Cowboys to bounce back from that just disgusting performance they had last week. Everybody's overreacting to what they saw last. Like, what's wrong with the Cowboys? They're going to want the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill back. I don't. I'm going against that sentiment. I'm on the Dallas Cowboys. And then let's try to finish up this video here talking about, oh, God, a Sunday night game and 3 Monday night games this week. These games are all so spread out, man. So the Sunday games, these are all on Christmas Eve. Or no, wait, sorry. These are all, wait, what? Sunday and the Monday? No, no. These are all Saturday games, I think, right? Because I think, uh, I don't even know. I think, wait, I don't even know. Is Monday Christmas? I don't even know, man, because these are all wrong, obviously. Obviously, Monday, I think, I don't even know what it is, but this full slate of games, I think, is Sunday. And then I think these Monday night games are actually on Tuesday. I don't even know what the case is here, but some of them some of them are on Christmas Eve, some of them are on Christmas. I don't know what day is what. The NFL schedules these all around like different holidays and whatever. And I think whatever the case may be, we got this night game here on whatever day it is. The primetime game on Christmas Eve is the Patriots Broncos. Nobody's gonna want to watch this game, man. Really, Patriots Broncos. Broncos are up from 6 to 6.5 with 82% of the cash on them and 74% of the tickets. So the Broncos are the public home team. They're laying a lot of points, but it's like, the Patriots are just so ugly right now. I mean, the Patriots are coming off a decent performance. They played the Chiefs pretty close and probably should have covered that game, man, at home against the Chiefs as like a 10-point underdog or whatever, a 9.5-point underdog. The Patriots lost that game by 10. Oh, boy. They had opportunities to cover the line in that game, cover the spread. It was a step-up game for the Patriots, and they didn't play that badly, and now they have to go out into elevation on the road. It's not a very good spot for the Patriots, coming off a pretty hard-fought game against the Chiefs, and the Patriots have not been playing well. Bailey Zappi, I guess, is still their quarterback. He is no good. Mac Jones is a total head case and isn't good either. The Patriots are a disaster. They have a lot of problems, but coming off that pretty good game that they played against the Chiefs, a tough game going into a tough environment like this where the Broncos are fighting for a playoff spot here. I think it's a bad spot for the Patriots, but I wouldn't want to lay 6.5 with the Broncos, who the pressure is going to be on the Broncos, though, because they're trying to get into the playoffs, and I think the Broncos are not as good as we think they are off of that recent stretch of games that they had where I think they overperformed, and they were doing a lot of it off of turnovers, but now they're in a situation where I went against them last week against the Lions in that primetime game, and everybody saw the Broncos just got housed in that game. So I think it is a spot where the Broncos are probably going to play better and bounce back a bit after that awful loss. Where Sean Payton looked like he was just getting real frustrated, yelling at Russell Wilson. I don't know if there's chaos in the clubhouse. I think that it's probably a game where the Broncos are going to be in bounce back mode there, and they need to win to make the playoffs here. The Patriots are coming off playing the Chiefs pretty tough and having to go out into a tough environment. So my lean would still be to the Broncos in that one, but there's no way I would play that game in any fashion at all. It is not a strong lean at all, but that if I had to play it, and I'm going to have to pick the game, so I guess the slight lean at the moment at least would be to the Broncos in that one. And then going to Monday night, oh man, so many games here. Raiders, Chiefs, or these are all, it's 3 games throughout the day, actually. So I think these are the Christmas. These might actually all be, I don't know if these are all Saturday, Sunday, but I don't know what day these games are on, man. I'm confused. But the Raiders Chiefs are, the 1 o'clock game on whatever day this is on Christmas Day. They have a three game Christmas Day lineup, so it's almost going to be like a Thanksgiving lineup, but on Christmas instead. Maybe the NFL's trying out something new with more nice holiday slate here. So you got Raiders Chiefs. Chiefs are up from 10 or down from 10.5 to 10 as a huge favorite. They have 89% of the cash, but 73% of the tickets on them. I actually lean to the Chiefs slightly in this one. The Chiefs have not been playing good football recently. I think they want to turn it around. I mean, it does look like there is some chaos going on there. Mahomes is just really frustrated with Tony. Everybody knows Tony is just dropping balls all over the place. Like, he has the yips, man. It's like Chuck Knobloch when he was on the Yankees, where every time he fielded the ball, he threw the ball over first base and into the stands. Like, he couldn't not do that. You got the yips. Tony's got the yips, man. Like, they could put any reasonably okay wide receiver in there, and he would be catching more balls than Tony is, and it's costing them. It's costing them games. Mahomes is getting frustrated, but I still think that the Chiefs are probably going to show up in this game. I actually do lean to the Chiefs to cover this number here. The Chiefs were laying, I think, a pretty similar number on the road against the Raiders not that long ago, and the Raiders were out to, like a 14-0 lead in that game. The Raiders actually played pretty well against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs did wind up winning and covering somehow with a late implosion, as the Raiders do, but that game might focus the Chiefs maybe a little bit there. Or you could argue that because the Chiefs beat the Raiders in their own house, that's going to refocus the Raiders. Maybe because the Raiders got beaten by the Chiefs in their own house, and now this is that like road reversal, revenge type of angle here where the Raiders are a huge underdog, so they might show up here. But I actually lean more to the Chiefs' direction here because they've looked like really ugly recently. They've been playing ugly football. They played ugly against the Patriots. Didn't win that game by that much. Didn't look good. Everybody's making fun of Tony, saying what's going on here with them. I think Andy Reid is probably going to get them back together. And the Chiefs, the Raiders are the type of team that the Chiefs kind of just they like to beat up on in some cases. And what do we see out of the Raiders? Even though the Raiders do have extra time off because they played last Thursday, but what do we see out of the Raiders? They scored 63 points, man. Even though it was against the Chargers, who have a horrific defense. But really, when you're a team that scored 63 points, I don't want to be on you in your next game, like kind of regardless of what the situation is really. So that would have me leaning against the Raiders as well. So I think more factors, like if you look at just what happened last week, more of those factors put me on the Chiefs than otherwise, even though the Raiders are indeed in that road reversal revenge angle. I think that is less of a factor than what we saw last week. So my slight lean there would be to the Chiefs, but there's no way I'm going to get involved in this game at all. The Giants-Eagles is another game of the... Why are these games? You got the Christmas lineup and you're giving us these horrible games. Just spend time with your family, man. Nobody's going to want to watch. You can have these games on in the background or whatever and maybe keep one eye on it just to see what's happening. But who's going to want to watch Raiders, Chiefs, and Giants-Eagles? Eagles are up from 10 to 12 at home. 93% of the cash on the Eagles. 77% of the tickets. So the Eagles... just like the Chiefs are a huge public home favorite, but it looks like they do have the cash discrepancy on them, and the line is moving up on the Eagles here. The Eagles are on that losing streak, man. They're just not playing great football right now. I don't think they're as good as we thought they were. People are acting like they're like the best team in football. I don't think that's the case. I think they're probably still like a top 5 team in the NFL, but they've hit a tough stretch of games now. They lost to the 49ers. They lost to the Dallas Cowboys, and then last week, I think they didn't have that much left, and they lost in a tough Monday night game against a pretty desperate Seahawks team. Huge win for the Seahawks. So the Eagles, yeah, they're on a short week, but maybe they might be in a little bit of a bounce back because that was a tough spot for them after those 2 huge games. The Seahawks game maybe not as big, and they probably they could have won that game. They really slipped up, and Drew Lock had that nice game-winning drive against some crazy. Drew Lock, man, Hall of Famer. Drew Lock and Jake Browning, they're both first ballot Hall of Famers, obviously, no question. I think the Eagles could be in a bounce-back mode after that, but I wouldn't want to lay this many points with the Eagles either. I don't know, man. And the Eagles actually haven't played the Giants yet this year. They play the Giants 2 out of the last 3 weeks of the season, so they play at the Giants in week 18, I think, in the final week. So they haven't even played them yet. So there's no road reversal revenge angle coming into play here. The Giants played a really ugly game last week, only scoring 6 points against New Orleans. And I think Tommy DeVito got hurt. And I don't even know who's going to be quarterbacking for the Giants in this game. I have no idea. The Giants did look uglier than the Eagles last week, and the Eagles have a shorter time off, though, because they played on Monday night. And even though the Eagles, yeah, maybe they're in bounce-back mode, that was a bit of a tougher game. The Giants just got wrecked by the Saints and really didn't look good at all. Totally embarrassing. And that, even though that killed the Giants, pretty unimpressive win streak that they had, where the only kind of impressive win was against the Packers there. And then they suffered that big letdown last week, which I was on the New Orleans Saints. The Giants had a shorter week and whatever, but now the Eagles do have a shorter week here, and the Giants had such a bad loss that maybe that would just have me leaning to the Giants slightly in this game, getting all those points. But I don't know, man, because the Eagles they're fighting the Cowboys for the division right now, and they are going to need wins. But yeah, I mean, they're going to want to win, but are they going to also kind of just think, well, we can get in and get out of here and not want people to get hurt either, because they know they're going to be in the playoffs as well. So I don't know. I don't know what the Eagles' mindset is going to be here. And you're asking them to lay like almost 2 touchdowns here and cover a huge number. So my slight lean, I guess, would be to the Giants in that one, but that's really, really weak lean there. That game is really difficult to read. And then Ravens 49ers. Hey, finally we get a good game here as the night game on Christmas. A good matchup between the Ravens and the 49ers. This is an interesting one, man. This one is tough to read for me as well, I would say. This is People are saying they're hailing this as like a potential Super Bowl preview game, man. So do we treat this like it's the Super Bowl, or do we think that the public is maybe giving the underdog too much credit here, the team that's the worst team, giving them a little bit too much credit? I don't know about that in this case, because a lot of times in the Super Bowl, where it's like expected to be this really close game, you see a lot of play on like the underdog. If it's not like a huge underdog, you see that underdog getting like a decent amount of play. Sometimes not, though. And in this case, you don't see that happening with the Ravens here, man. 49ers are down from 5.5 to 5 at home. They got 63% of the tickets with 62% of the cash. So it looks like there's reverse line movement and a cash discrepancy going against the public 49ers, or the public home favorite here. It looks like that market movement, the market indicators are on the Baltimore Ravens here. So that would be the way that I would lean as it stands right now. I would lean to taking the points with the Ravens here. 49ers have just looked like world beaters since they came out of that bye. People totally forget they went into that bye on a 3-game losing streak, but they were without Deebo Samuel for all 3 of those games, without McCaffrey for one of them. They lost those 3 games. They came back out of the bye and just started wrecking everybody, and they've won every game since coming out of the bye, including demolishing the Philadelphia Eagles, which everybody saw. That was a huge game. And then last week, the 49ers put up 40-something points against the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray back. And I don't know, man. I kind of thought that Arizona was going to cover the spread in that game, and they were within the spread for, I would say, the majority of that game until things kind of just unraveled a little bit more near the end for Arizona, and the 49ers wound up putting up more points near the end there, which kind of has been their MO. People have been seeing the 49ers just wrecking everybody, wrecking the Seahawks, and especially in the game at Seattle, and then they beat Arizona and put up a ton of points against them last week. So the 49ers almost look unbeatable at this point, whereas the Ravens, they're doing what they're doing a little bit uglier, I would say. People saw they almost lost to the Rams and then saw them on Monday night. Yeah, they won against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville made a ton of mistakes in that game, and it looked to me like Trevor Lawrence was not at 100% in that game. I don't know, man. I think the Ravens, they might be a little bit better than we think that they are right now, because, and that might have been the case for a lot of the season, because they kind of play an ugly style football, and they won that game against Jacksonville pretty ugly. Jacksonville probably should have covered that game, to be honest, even though the final actually makes it look like the Ravens maybe are better than they actually are. But if you actually saw that game, it was an ugly style game, and the Jacksonville was just making so many mistakes. And I think Jacksonville was in scoring range. Like, there were 4 times they were in scoring range in that game and didn't score any points, which is just ridiculous and pretty unacceptable from a perspective of, Jacksonville's offense. Their offense has been pretty good this year, even though now they're without Christian Kirk. They still have other good receivers on that team. So I don't know what's going on with Jacksonville. Maybe Lawrence, his injury might be worse than we think it is, and he's trying to gut it out, and it's not really working. I don't know. But the Ravens, because they play that uglier style, and some of these recent games haven't looked that good, whereas the 49ers have been dominating everybody, that has me kind of leaning to the Ravens. And the other thing that's factoring in here is the 49ers, even though their defense is really good, their defense struggles against quarterbacks that can run around and can scramble. And Lamar Jackson is one of those quarterbacks. You saw them; they did struggle a bit against Kyler Murray last week. Murray put up a ridiculous performance last week. I think he had over 200 rushing yards himself. He was just doing crazy things and just running all over the place. Kind of shocking that your quarterback has 200-something rushing yards and you still don't cover as a 13.5-point underdog. I don't know what's up with that, but the 49ers struggle against these quarterbacks that are mobile and that can move around a little bit, and that is not Jalen Hurts. It is not most of these quarterbacks the 49ers have faced this year, but Kyler Murray looked pretty good against them, looked really good against them, actually. Put up a really crazy game against them on the ground. Lamar Jackson, like I said, is another one of those guys who can do that. And even though the Ravens did lose, I believe, one of their running backs last week to that really bad leg injury where his leg bent backwards, the Ravens, they have other running backs in there. They got Gus the Bus, and they got some other guys. I think they'll be fine as far as their rushing attack is concerned. They're never really known as having that superstar running back on that team. They have a balanced offensive attack, really. And Lamar Jackson puts up a lot of their rushing yards there as well. So they do a lot of different things on offense, and I think it's going to throw the 49ers off a little bit. I think they're going to come up with some schemes to throw Shanahan off a little bit. He tends to not be as good against these rushing quarterbacks, like I said. So I think the 49ers, the stock is as high as it can get on the 49ers, at least, and it's maybe not quite as high on the Ravens. I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC, and I do think that they're maybe even the second best team in the NFL behind the 49ers. So that being said, I think the 49ers, maybe they're like a couple points better than the Ravens. So I think maybe this line should be closer to somewhere like around 4.5, 4. Maybe that range. I don't know how much you give the 49ers for home field. Maybe about 2, somewhere in the 2, 2.5. I think home field has gotten less and less over time in the NFL to the point where it's not. People used to give it like the 3, and it was home field is 3 points. But I don't think that's the case anymore in the NFL, really. I think it's closer to 2 or 2.5. So those are the way I look at all of those games, man. That's a long, long video there. We're getting close to an hour on this video. I just went over a lot of games here, a lot of the leans that I have, all these primetime games, 6 primetime games, 7 primetime games. What are my actual plays again, though? The LA Chargers plus 12. I love that spot, man. That one, I just have to do that one. That one's crazy. Probably my weakest is Tennessee, which I'm listing it at plus 2.5 right now. But if 3s show up, that'll be what I'm grabbing there. I do like the spot well enough, as long as Tennessee's motivated to actually show up for that game. I like it. Tennessee plus 2.5, and then Dallas plus 2 is going to be the other one there. I like those 3. That's going to do it for me, man. I'm Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. You can follow me for my political shit posting, and follow the Tower Gang Pod for the most offensive comedy that you've ever heard. We do Wednesday nights. We did another show last night, which was pretty ridiculous. Probably not as hilarious and funny as the previous weeks, but still, we always have a good time, man. It's a fun show. You can find us on we try to promote the Rumble. Mostly we're on Rumble. We're still sort of on YouTube. We just live stream to YouTube. We're on Odyssey. We're on Spotify after the fact, and all the audio platforms. And Linktree, TowerGangPod.com. You can find us there for all the links. And you can support us at Locals, TowerGang.locals.com as well. So you can support us there with some money. And I always, on my big NFL videos, I give a shout out to Flapper.net as well. Flapper.net, some good guys over there. They do political shit posting like I do. They do humor, and they do talking about hot women. Follow those guys. Follow their blog, Flapper. You can follow their Twitter. I'm friends with those guys. I like what those guys do over there. We're in a similar vein for sure. And they talk about sports as well, of course. So I'll mention them on a sports show. Hell yeah. Let's do it. Let's hope we have a good NFL week. I was going to say a better week, but last week was really pretty good. So can't really do that much better than that. So hopefully this week goes well as well, though. That's going to do it for me, man. Tower Gang Toad. Peace out, baby.